Welcome to the Civic Sounds, a podcast by the American Corner Moi. Enjoy great conversations. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Civic Sounds, and my name is Kevin Apodo. I am your host, and on this platform, we get the opportunity to look at some of the contemporary issues that we're dealing with as a generation, and of course, as a country and as a society. So we've been able to look at matters governance, matters entrepreneurship, matters leadership. We look at issues around employability and job creation and all that, you can name it. And I think I'm loving the conversations we do have here, and even your reactions on our channel, and even on the videos that we do post. Sometimes we do these podcasts just for the sake of information. Sometimes there is something that we talk about on this channel, or on another channel somebody is talking about it and all that, and it turns out to be informative to someone, or it turns out to be shaping an opinion in the society. And that is what gives us the joy. We find more joy trying to do that, and we don't take for granted the fact that you've been with us, or you're always with us. Whenever we post or share a video, you're able to look at it and you get what you have to get out of it. So we say thank you so much. Having said that, today I decided to do a solo conversation with you, our viewers, so that we get to understand something that is currently rampant in Africa. And Kenya is one of those countries that are leading in that conversation. And what am I talking about? I am talking about the changing in opinion, or the change in opinion. You see, the Gen Zs are taking center stage in the leadership, governance, and democracy conversation of Africa. And that is very, very important. So it got my attention, of course, because of the developments that are going on in the continent currently. So we remember vividly, or maybe if you don't remember, personally I remember vividly the instances of the Gen Z revolution. People named it or branded it the Gen Z revolution, but I think it was a protest against the finance bill in Kenya 2024. So that happened in June 2024. That is last year. And a lot was going on during that particular time. People talked, and from where I sit, this is my thought, that whatever happened during that time shaped a lot of things. You might not know, but personally, because I interact with so many people, so many institutions of government, private institutions and all that, and even at an individual level, I can tell you that revolution shaped a lot of things, even in the way our development partners, international development partners, carry their own activities. For example, around last year, 2024, I was there. I was attending a meeting with one of the international development agencies. And they were telling us that right now, if you do a proposal that doesn't mention the word youth in it, it is bound to fail. You understand? That if you do a proposal to them that you're looking to be funded, and you don't mention how the youth are likely to benefit from that, or that initiative, then it's bound to fail. So that is just one of the instances that I can give clearly of how whatever happened in Kenya last year really shaped the policy frameworks, and even budgeting of government, and even budgeting of private sector. So we've seen such cases, being reciprocated. In fact, the most recent one is the one that happened in Tanzania during their presidential election. That was on the 29th of October, like last month. There were those demonstrations. The young people were calling for political justice, because according to them, they believe that it was so unfair for the government of the day in Tanzania to arrest the leading opposition aspirant, that is Tundu Lissu. So they were calling for that guy to be released so that he can fairly contest in the elections. And honestly, as per media reports, there were some deaths that were reported, only that I'm not able to accurately put it into numbers. Perhaps I don't have the authority to do that, but deaths were reported. There was destruction of property and all that. In general, there was unrest. We can think, or we can remember of the cases about the cases in Madagascar, the cases in Morocco, and all these other countries that have undergone the face of, the Gen Z revolution, of the young people just challenging the status quo. You understand? So that brings me to one thing, and I want to take the story of Kenya and correlate it to the story of Tanzania, or the case of Kenya and case of Tanzania. Last year, while the revolution was taking place in Kenya, we've seen those comments online where Tanzanian leaders, were castigating the Kenyan youth about what was going on in the country. They were saying they're destroying their own country. And I remember you could see some Kenyan youth, commenting, "Oh, don't mock us, it will get to you," and all that. And all of a sudden, in a year's time, the same thing was replicated in Tanzania, So what happens? Like, how are we able to ensure that we fuel this conversation, or we fuel this revolution from one country to the next one within Africa? Talk about digitization, internet and social media. I think that is one of the leading mobilization, or I think mobilization platforms where the youth are able to mobilize themselves. They are saying, can we use social media? Let us tell the world what is going on. And that is why and how nowadays it's easy, or it's easier for someone in Tanzania to learn about what is going on in Kenya. Someone in Kenya know what is going on in Tanzania. Someone in Uganda is able to know what is going on in Rwanda, Ghana, and all that, or even in the United States of America. What does this revolution mean? Or what exactly is it? What is the revolt about? What are the youth talking about? What are their asks? What are their grievances? So, in my own understanding, because I'm also a youth, by the way, I'm also a youth, and I also have my own grievances. Some I agree with the general youth population, some are my personal opinions and all that. But one thing that is standing out is that the youth are challenging the status quo. They want things to be done in a different way, as opposed to how they used to be done traditionally. You understand? There is how this generation, our generation, wants to be governed. The youth are trying to challenge the idea of bureaucracy, how the government operates and all that. The youth are calling out the government officials who are corrupt. And the youth are privy to the fact that we cannot all be politicians, we cannot all be political leaders, neither can we all be civil servants. But we are entitled to services, regardless of the position we are or we serve in life. It could be I am just a graduate who is jobless in this in the village somewhere. I should be entitled to the fact that I'm able to go to a hospital and get health care. I am entitled to the fact that if I have my children, they're able to go to school and get teachers or get all these services available for them. I think that is what the youth are challenging, you know, and up to that extent, I agree with them 101%. Talking about development, you know, they are challenging, they need development to go back to the grassroots level and all that. And during that revolution last year, you know, during those protests last year, there is something, or there is a strategy that the youth in Kenya applied, and it was called Salamu. You know, that if you're a politician and you're not doing the right thing, they come to greet you, you know, wanakuja kukusalimia. And if you tell me that maybe the next generations that would come or will come after us will learn on that, will learn about that strategy as one of the ways through which our generation was able to ensure that we get development, or we ensure we used to ensure service delivery. So how did this used to work? Perhaps you're aware, but this is an instance where let's assume you're an MCA or you're an MP, and you go back to the village and the roads are not done. So the villagers or the constituents would get you out of your car. They would force you to walk on the muddy road so that you can get a feel of what a muddy road is, you know. So there were also instances where, like, politicians, especially politicians and civil servants, were literally being attacked physically by the youth, you know. And I've been to forums where civil servants are present, and all of a sudden the youth become hostile. And one of them was a very ugly incident, where the youth were literally telling someone, one of the civil servants attending that forum, that you need to retire and leave the position for us, you know. So what I'm saying is the change that we, the young people, are calling up for are very, very important. However, allow me to respectfully challenge not all, but some of the procedures through which we are calling for these changes. For example, I just gave you the example of a forum I attended, and, you know, the youth were telling a civil servant to resign. And one thing I did not like is the fact that somebody was actually telling this gentleman that if you are not able to save while you are young, that is up to you. We are coming for those jobs. I know joblessness or unemployment is currently a major issue in Kenya and Africa and even the entire world. However, I want to urge our fellow young people that there is a procedure, a very respectable procedure through which we can get these positions. What is the first procedure? Number one, are you skilled to be able to take on that responsibility? That is the first thing. Ask yourself, Are you able, are you able, or are you ready to take up on that responsibility? Let's assume right now I was attending a forum, and maybe a leader or a civil servant is there, and I am like, I want you to resign so that I can take your position. Am I adequately skilled to be able to take up that role? If at all this person tells me, Kevin, you know what, come take this position, you're starting work tomorrow, am I skilled enough? Number two, on top of skilling, and of course skilling sometimes happens in school, or sometimes it is you can get skilled through prior learning, prior learning experience and all that. And number two, let us talk about capacity building. And this happens even in the homes where we come from. Every home has a structure, regardless of where you are brought up. You could have been brought up under a single parent or under a guardian, or maybe you are lucky to have all your parents alive and your family is structured. And you've seen, or we've seen, families that when they follow that structure, things tend to work out for them. All right? So even in the family level, personally, in our own family, there were things that could not happen without the input of our father or of my father. So even if you have a good idea, you have to go and ask your father, I wanted to do this, I wanted to do that. What do you think? Sometimes maybe your father, your parent, gives you maybe a different opinion. So it's going to be upon you to take it or to leave it. But what I mean is, it was respectful for the father to be able to have his input in everything that we do as a family and we do as the children of that home. What does that mean? I am referring to the corporate term capacity building. You understand? Sometimes not sometimes, but every time, capacity building is very, very important. Capacity building is very crucial. So even as much as we are calling to be employed, we are calling for the government to create job opportunities for us. Sometimes we need to learn that in the process of getting this job, we need to be servants. During your servanthood period, you get to learn how things are done, so that you don't end up getting a job or getting into a position, then you're not able to sustain it. You understand? So for example, I saw in the year 2024, when after the demonstrations and people were pushing the president to reshuffle the cabinet, and then people were like, we want the youth in the cabinet, we want the youth in the cabinet. I am not denying the fact that we need to give or we need to incorporate the young people into positions of power. But what I'm asking is, are these youth capacity built enough? Have they built enough capacity or adequate capacity to be able to handle these positions? For example, let's assume I, as Kevin, I've never maybe made even 5 million, or I've never interacted with 5 million, So what happens if you take me to become a CS or a PS in a docket where I am going to interact with billions? Maybe this money could change me, could change my thinking, even my personality could change, how I talk to people, how I interact with people, because this is new money to me. I've never interacted with it before. So maybe I want to try new things. That is the time I want to try a new girlfriend, a new wife, I want to try the expensive outfit. I want to drive the most expensive cars. But what will I be doing? I will be damaging the image of the youth. And through that mismanagement, people will be convinced, or I'll be convincing people that no, the youth are not ready for these positions. The youth are not ready for these things that they are calling for. So what I'm saying is, ensure that as a young person, you're able to build capacity so that when the opportunity knocks, you are adequately prepared and skilled to take up the job. I have seen a lot of times you go to an office and there is this thing I call generational warfare. And believe me when I tell you that generational warfare is currently going on, where the youth feel that they are entitled to these positions. I don't know whether they are entitled. I don't know whether they are not entitled. But what I know is there is a 50-50 balance. I know they are entitled to be given work, but at the same time, they are not entitled to a particular position. They have to work and earn it. No one is supposed to be entitled to a position. Everyone is supposed to work and earn a position. So what I'm challenging the young people, or my fellow young people, is that we are not going to rise by shutting down other people. Our candles are not going to shine brighter by dimming other people's candles. We are not going to be respected by disrespecting the elderly. That is for a fact. We are not going to be respected by disrespecting other people. My challenge to you as a young person is, we have to learn to incorporate each and everyone in these spaces, whether it's in church, whether it's in school, whether it's in the workplace. Can we be able to incorporate each and every person, their opinion, and what they think? All right. So I have seen that one going on, and I want to call upon us to be respectful in the process of calling for change. Okay. So the thing is, I know in every, whether you're doing a project or you're doing whatever it is that you're doing, people sometimes ask, what is your sustainability model? So this is a point of introspection, and it's a challenge I'm posing to us, the young people. Can we ask ourselves, are we able to sustain this movement? Or are we able to sustain what we are calling for? Okay? So the first one, in order to be able to sustain all these things that we are pushing for, is that it has to start with me as a young person. It has to start with you, my fellow young person. So the moment it starts from an individual level, from an individual perspective, then we are able to sustain it. So if we are calling on corrupt leaders, or we are calling out corruption, personally, what am I doing to tame that corruption? Okay? So for example, let's assume you are on a motorbike and you're late for a meeting, so you're trying to navigate the traffic. Okay? And clearly you can see the biker is using a wrong route or a wrong direction while trying to get you to the meeting as soon as you can. So during that time, you won't talk. Why? Because you are late. Okay? But if you see someone trying to do the same thing, then you want to call them out. And we are always so quick to to call out our leaders, especially when we see those cars with siren, you know, those ones for leaders with siren and security personnel. They are trying to go wrong direction, trying to beat time. We are like, oh no, come on, look at them, you guys, mnatudharau and all that. But what do you do when it is you and you have a situation like that to deal with? Are you able to call yourself out? Because I can imagine a scenario where, or a situation where, everyone is late. So now let everybody go the direction they want. We might not be able to have a country. And we can realize as many accidents as we can. So what I'm saying is, be the change that you want to see. This initiative has to start with me. It has to start with you. That is one. Number two, for us to be able to sustain the change that we are calling for, and this is a naked reality, a naked truth, is that we need to understand the systems and the processes of achieving change. For example, if we are calling for political change, what is the process of attaining political change in Kenya? Okay? It is through the ballot. Constitutionally, it is through the ballot. So if I want to ensure that I sustain that political change as a young person, what do? Number one, I have to ensure that I am adequately prepared to participate in the process of that change. How do I do that? I register as a voter. Okay? So if you register as a voter, then you are like, I am entitled. You understand? I am entitled to question my leader because I voted him in. So, as a young person, go out and register as a voter. After registering as a voter, the second thing on political awareness, political governance awareness, ensure that you understand the mandate of the person you are voting for, so that we avoid confusion. And this has always happened. We've had scenarios where an MP has been punished for a job that was supposed to be done by the governor, or the governor is being punished for the job that was supposed to be done by the president, or an MCA is suffering for a job that was supposed to be done by the president or the governor. So, first of all, we need to clearly understand the mandate of the people or the positions for which we are voting. So once we understand that, then now we create awareness. Because number one, there is something I know that you, our viewer, does not know. There is something you know that I do not know. But then through this platform, maybe I am able to give you some awareness, or I'm able to do some civic awareness where you're able to learn that, oh, so things are supposed to be done this way. So once we do that civic education and all that, then now we can rightfully question our leaders whenever and wherever we feel that they are not doing what they are mandated to do. So I want us to be objective when it comes to calling for change. Let us not just be a shouting generation. Our parents did it. It did not work. We cannot continue with the same style and expect a different outcome. So we have to be objective with calling for change. The other thing I would like to talk about is that if we want to sustain this change that we are calling for, then we have to look at and rethink some of the traditional causes of these problems. For example, in Kenya, one of the leading cause of political volatility is tribalism. Okay? And at some point, there is a point where the late former Prime Minister Raila Odinga told us that always think as a Kenyan first. Before you think as a Kikuyu, before you think as a Kamba, before you think as a Luya or as a Luo or as a Kisi, always think as a Kenyan first. And I want to challenge our viewers who are Kenyans, by the way. For example, especially the young people. In as much as we had unrest in Tanzania during the presidential election, that war that they were in, or that revolution that they were trying to push for, it was not being pushed, or it was not being driven on tribal lines. In fact, my mother is from Tanzania, my own mom is from Tanzania, and I can tell you that for you to hear a Tanzanian, a Tanzania call himself by the name, or refer to their colleague or their friend or their anyone by their tribe, they only do that when they are trying to make a point, or when they are trying to maybe refer to something. That is the only time where you will hear them refer to themselves with their tribe. So for example, there is a tribe that is believed to be stingy in Tanzania. So sometimes you will hear a Tanzania tell another Tanzania, maybe he wants to refer to that person as being stingy without telling them you're stingy. So they'll be like, wewe ni I don't want to call that tribe. But even when we are in Tanzania, sometimes when you go to visit, when somebody tells you, wewe ni kabila flani, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're from that tribe. It is because they are trying to refer to something. So I want to challenge young people to look at the traditional causes of the volatility and the system failures that we've been fighting, so that we do not repeat the same problems, or we do not repeat the same mistakes that our parents did before and got us to where we are as a country. And as I wind up this conversation, because it's quite deep and might take me a long time, I want to challenge the youth that unity is very, very important. Okay? Unity is very, very important. Beyond the 2024 demonstration in Kenya, we got some young leadership elements arise. And everybody was trying to do it their own style. But it got to a point that we, the young people, failed to agree that who is being righteous, who should we follow. It is okay to differ. But again, if we have to differ, then we have to differ in a united manner, so that we don't lose the focus. Okay? So unity is going to be very, very important. But above everything, as my final call to you, the young person who is calling for change, do a self-introspection. Ask yourself, are you prepared for that change? Are you able to stand the test when it is now you being challenged to facilitate that change? And you being called upon to facilitate that change could be you sometimes being subjected to the legal process. So you did something wrong and people are like, no, take him to court, take her to court. Are you able to stand that change? Why? Because the change starts with you and it ends with you. It starts with me and it ends with me. So collectively, we are able to change our societies. Collectively, we are able to change our countries, and we are able to leave this world a better place. Thank you. And that was my time. My name is Kevin Apodo, and I'm your host. Thank you.